It's kind of crazy, isn't it? All this hype about AI.
Yeah, totally.
You've got these huge companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, xAI, even like Meta, Google, Microsoft,
Oh,
Amazon.
yeah, they're all in.
They're all pouring so much into it, especially these LLMs. And it really makes you wonder, like, what are the CEOs of these companies? What are they really thinking?
Right. What's the big plan?
Yeah,
What are they trying to build?
exactly.
And are they all on the same page, or are they, like, going in completely different directions?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, that's what we're going to try to figure out in this deep dive.
Perfect. I'm excited.
We're going to look at their visions for the AI business. What are their big ultimate goals? What's working for them? What are they struggling with?
Hmm.
And maybe the most important thing, if someone out there is thinking about starting their own AI company, what can they learn from these, the
Right.
giants?
The people who are already doing it.
Exactly. So to do this, we've been looking at a bunch of analyses of their plans and what they've been saying.
Awesome. Okay, let's get started. So first up, let's talk about Sam Altman over at OpenAI. What's his like fundamental vision for AI? What's driving him?
Well, Altman has had this really clear vision for a long time, actually. I mean, almost from when OpenAI started, which was what, like 9 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
His main thing is achieving AGI, artificial general intelligence.
Right, we hear that a lot these days.
Yeah. And then even beyond that, superintelligence, like AI that's smarter than humans.
Okay. And he thinks that's a good thing.
He believes it has the potential to, solve some of the world's biggest problems, like climate change, poverty, things like that. He thinks it could lead to a future where, like, everyone has what they need and life is better. And of course, ChatGPT kind of blew up, and that really put this whole idea of AGI on the map.
Yeah, for sure. ChatGPT was huge.
But here's the thing. Altman's not just focused on building AGI. He's also really interested in all the disruption that's happening right now, because he thinks it's a necessary part of the process.
Interesting. So the chaos is like a learning experience.
In a way, yeah. Like, by seeing how society reacts to things like ChatGPT, hey, we learn more about how to manage even more powerful AI in the future.
Okay, I see. So how's he actually going about achieving all of this? Like, what's his strategy?
His main strategy is to release new AI systems gradually, step by step. Get the technology out there, see how people use it, get feedback, and use that to keep improving.
That makes sense.
He's even said that he expects this whole process to be kind of messy.
Yeah, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right?
Exactly. There are going to be bumps along the way, but they're going to learn from them.
Okay.
And this strategy represents a pretty big shift for OpenAI.
Oh, yeah.
They used to be mostly focused on research, but now they're becoming more like a product company. And that takes a lot of money.
I bet. So is he working with any specific timelines? Like, when does he think all this is going to happen?
He's actually said that by 2025, we could start seeing AI agents that can actually join the workforce
Yeah.
and have a real impact on what companies can produce.
Wow, that's really soon.
Right. He thinks this will be a big step towards proving that their whole approach is working and that superintelligence is possible. He's even said that they basically know how to build AGI now.
Wow. That's a pretty bold statement.
It is. A lot of people in the field are still debating what AGI even really means, so for him to say they know how to build it, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what are the implications of all this? Like, what does it mean for us?
Well, first of all, focusing on the superintelligence goal helps OpenAI attract really smart people and get a lot of money. People want to work on big, exciting projects.
Makes sense.
But of course, there are also some ethical questions that come with it. Building AI that could be smarter than humans is a huge responsibility. We have to think carefully about the implications.
Excellent.
And then there's the whole thing about AI joining the workforce. That could have a big impact on jobs and the economy. We're going to need to figure out how to adjust to that. But even with all the challenges, you can't deny that this kind of bold vision can really push things forward and lead to some amazing innovations.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about Altman and OpenAI. Now let's move on to Dario Amodei at Anthropic. Didn't he used to work at OpenAI too?
Yeah, he did. He actually co-founded Anthropic with some other people who left OpenAI.
Interesting. So why did they leave? What made them want to start their own thing?
Well, they wanted to put a much bigger focus on responsible AI development.
Okay, so they were concerned about the potential risks of AI and wanted to make sure it was developed safely.
Exactly. That's the whole foundation of Anthropic. Safety and ethics are their top priorities.
So how does that translate into their actual business strategy?
Well, one thing they're doing is focusing on selling their AI to businesses, especially big companies.
Okay, so they're going after the enterprise market.
Right. And they're offering these businesses more control over things like cost and how quickly the AI can do things. But they're also doing a ton of research into something called mechanistic interpretability.
Mechanistic. What?
Interpretability. Basically, they're trying to understand how these AI models work on the inside.
Like opening up the black box and seeing what's going on.
Yeah, kinda. Because if we understand how they work, we can make their behavior more predictable and safe.
Makes sense.
And they see this research as something that benefits everyone, so they share a lot of their findings.
Oh, that's cool.
They're also pioneering something called constitutional AI.
Constitutional AI, what's that?
Imagine giving the AI a set of rules, like a constitution, like
Okay.
always be honest or don't hurt people,
Mm.
and then you train it to follow those rules instead of just feeding it tons of data.
So it's like building in a moral compass from the start.
Exactly. And as their models get more powerful, they have this responsible scaling policy where they increase security measures.
Okay, so they're really serious about safety. What about their long-term goals? What does Mo Day think the future holds for AI?
He's actually said that he thinks AI could take over most coding jobs within the next year or so.
Wow.
Yeah. And then looking further ahead, he thinks that by 2026 or 2027, AI systems will be like having, and I quote, a country of geniuses in a data center.
That's a pretty wild image.
Right. He thinks it's going to have huge implications for everything, the economy, society, even global security.
So with this approach, who are they trying to target as customers?
Well, their whole focus on safety is really attractive to governments and businesses who are worried about the risks of AI.
Yeah, makes sense.
This constitutional AI thing could lead to systems that are more trustworthy and reliable. And since they're focusing on businesses, they're creating solutions that are practical and can be used right away.
So they're not just focused on the research side of things. They're actually building things that people can use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're also working closely with policymakers to help shape the laws and regulations around AI.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's switch gears a bit and talk about Elon Musk and his company xAI. He's always been known for doing things a little differently. What's his take on AI?
Yeah, Musk's vision is, well, it's very Musk. It's really ambitious and kind of philosophical.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
He says that xAI wants to understand the true nature of the universe.
Wow, that's a pretty lofty goal.
Right. And he wants to do this by building AI that's really good at math and logic.
So not just like generating text or images, but actually like deep understanding of the universe.
Exactly. And even the name xAI and the date they chose to launch it, it all kind of hints at this big cosmic mission.
Like what's the connection with the launch date?
Well, it has to do with the number 42, which is like the answer to life, the universe, and everything in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay, I get it. Very Musk. So what's his strategy for achieving this, universe understanding AI?
His approach is all about speed. Develop things quickly and get them out there. We saw that with Grok, their chatbot. They released that pretty fast. And a big part of his strategy is using X, what used to be Twitter.
So he's using his existing platform.
Yeah, to distribute and integrate their AI models. He also wants to create AI that's super curious and always searching for the truth. Like AI that can explore and learn on its own.
That's an interesting idea.
And they're putting a ton of money into infrastructure. They've got this supercomputer called Colossus, and they've even open sourced some of their models like Grok 1.
Open sourcing is an interesting choice. What are Musk's thoughts on the long-term impact of all this? Like, how does he see the future playing out?
He's made some pretty big predictions about jobs. He thinks that AI will eventually take over most jobs that humans do.
Wow, so that's a big concern.
It is. And he's even suggested that we might need universal basic income to deal with that.
Interesting.
And to show how serious he is about AI, he's even been taking some of the NVIDIA chips that were originally meant for Tesla and using them for X and xAI instead.
So he's really prioritizing AI even over his other companies.
Yeah, it seems like he sees it as that important.
Yeah. So to sum up, Musk wants to use AI to understand the universe, and he thinks it's going to have a massive impact on society. What are the wider implications of all this?
Well, on the one hand, this approach could lead to some groundbreaking discoveries in science.
I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah, and by combining Grok with all the data on X, they could have a huge advantage over others.
Makes sense.
But this whole idea of AI taking over jobs, that's a serious issue. We'll need to start planning now for how to deal with that.
Definitely. It seems like Musk is always willing to push the boundaries and take risks, even if it means disrupting things along the way.
Exactly. He's driven by these big questions and ambitious goals, and he doesn't seem too worried about following conventional timelines.
Okay, let's move on to Meta and Mark Zuckerberg. They've got a huge user base already. What's their angle on AI?
Well, their main thing is building open source AI models and then integrating them into all their platforms, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, the whole shebang.
So they want to bake AI into everything they do.
Right. And they have a few goals with this. They want to make their apps better for users, they want to drive innovation within their company, and they want to make advanced AI accessible to everyone.
So open source is a big part of their strategy.
Huge. They're spending a ton of money on infrastructure, like data centers, GPUs, all that stuff. They're projecting to spend over $60 billion in 2025.
That's a lot of money.
It is. And Zuckerberg thinks that this investment, along with their massive user base, will give them a real edge.
So how are they actually putting this open source approach into action?
Well, they've got this family of models called Llama.
Llama.
Yeah, Llama. And they're coming out with Llama 4 soon, which is supposed to be even better than the top secret models out there.
Okay, impressive.
It can supposedly do things like perform tasks on its own and process different kinds of data. They want Llama to become the standard model that everyone uses, all thanks to its open source nature. And they're also planning to make their AI assistant, Meta AI, available to over 1 billion users by the end of next year.
So they're really going all in on open source and AI integration. What does Zuckerberg see as the end result of all this? Like, what's the future he's imagining?
He's predicted that by 2025, AI could be so good at coding that it could actually replace a lot of mid-level engineers.
Oh, wow. That's a bold prediction.
Yeah. And he thinks this could save tech companies a ton of money.
Okay, so big implications for the tech industry. What are some of the wider effects of Meta's strategy?
Well, their open source approach with Llama could really speed up AI development across all sorts of industries and research.
That makes sense.
And the fact that they're investing so much in infrastructure shows that they're serious about AI for the long haul. But, this idea of AI replacing engineers, that raises some concerns about jobs and what people will do.
Yeah, that keeps coming up.
Right. And then their focus on personalization with Meta AI, well, that brings up some privacy questions.
Right. How are they using our data?
Exactly. And you can see that scale is really important to them. They want to reach as many people as possible. But there have also been some internal discussions about using copyrighted data to train their models, which raises some ethical and legal questions.
That's tricky territory.
Yeah, it's not all straightforward.
Okay, let's move on to Google. I mean, they've been at the forefront of AI for so long. What's Sundar Pichai's vision for Google in this, new era of AI?
Pichai's vision is all about AI first. He wants to integrate AI into everything Google does.
So making their products even smarter.
Exactly. And the big idea is to make information and intelligence accessible to everyone. They're investing a ton in infrastructure, too, especially their own custom-designed chips called TPUs.
Right, I've heard about those.
And they're taking a full stack approach, meaning they're controlling everything from the hardware to the software.
So they're not relying on anyone else.
Nope, they're doing it all in-house.
So is their main focus just on improving the products they already have, like search and maps and all that?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. They want to use AI to make those services even more useful for their billions of users. Pichai has said that he believes intelligence is going to be widely available.
So AI for everyone.
Exactly. And he even thinks AI is going to be more transformative than personal computing or mobile phones were.
Wow, that's a huge statement.
Right. And he often talks about how Google has been doing fundamental AI research for years. Like, they were the ones who developed some of the key technologies that made this whole generative AI thing possible.
So he's really emphasizing Google's long history in this field.
Yeah. And he's very optimistic about the impact AI is going to have. But he's also said that all of this rapid progress in AI might actually slow down a bit by 2025.
Oh, interesting. Why does he think that?
He thinks there might be some technical challenges that pop up and make things more difficult.
Yeah.
But even with that, he's still optimistic about the long term.
Okay, that makes sense.
And he's also excited about quantum computing. He thinks we could have practical quantum computers in the next 5 to 10 years.
Wow, that's another game changer. So what are the main takeaways from Google's approach?
Well, first of all, they're in a great position to integrate AI into our daily lives because they already have so many users and such a strong infrastructure. And this whole full-stack approach gives them a lot of control.
Right.
And Pichai's vision of making AI accessible to everyone could really boost innovation.
I can see that.
But his warning about a potential slowdown is a reminder that AI development isn't always going to be smooth sailing. Things are getting more complex.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, when he compares AI to things like fire and electricity, you can really see how much he believes in its power to change the world.
Yeah, those are some pretty fundamental forces.
Right. And it's interesting to see how Google is really focused on building their own models and keeping things in-house compared to some other companies that are more open to partnerships or using open source models.
Okay, let's move on to Microsoft. They've made some big moves in AI, especially under Satya Nadella. What's his take on the whole AI business?
Nadella's vision is all about empowerment. He wants to use AI to help individuals and organizations be more productive and achieve more.
So it's about practical applications.
Exactly. He's really focused on making sure that AI delivers real value and a return on investment for their customers.
So not just hype, but actually making AI useful.
Right. And their strategy is to integrate AI deeply into all their products, especially Azure, their cloud platform, and Microsoft 365.
Okay, so they're putting it everywhere.
Yeah, and they're really into AI agents, these little programs that can automate tasks and make things more efficient.
Right.
And of course, their partnership with OpenAI is a big deal too.
Yeah, that was huge news.
Nadella has said that their goal isn't just to achieve AGI for the sake of it. It's about making sure AI benefits the whole world and helps businesses succeed.
So they're really focused on the economic impact of AI.
Exactly. And it seems like that approach is working for them. Nadella has said that their AI business is already making over $13 billion a year.
Wow, that's huge.
All right, and it's growing really fast.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, you could say that. And Nadella sees a future where humans and AI work together really closely, where AI helps us be even more productive and creative.
That's an interesting vision. So what are some of the key things we can learn from Microsoft's strategy?
Well, first of all, they're showing that focusing on enterprise customers and providing practical solutions can be really successful.
Makes sense.
And they're betting big on AI agents becoming even more sophisticated in the future. But what's really interesting is how they define success. It's not just about reaching some abstract AI milestone. It's about the real-world impact on the economy and how AI can help businesses.
That's a very pragmatic approach.
It is, and it reminds me of how Microsoft Excel revolutionized the way businesses work.
Right, that was a game changer.
Nadella sees AI having that same kind of transformative power, but he's focused on the immediate benefits, not just some far-off future goal.
Okay, that's a good perspective. And finally, let's talk about Amazon and Andy Jassy. What's their take on the AI world?
Jassy sees Amazon as the supermarket of AI.
Okay, I like that.
Right. Their goal is to offer the widest range of AI models, services, and infrastructure so businesses can find whatever they need.
So they're not just building their own stuff, they're also providing a platform for others.
Exactly. And they're putting AI everywhere within Amazon. They reportedly have like 1,000 AI projects going on right now internally.
Wow, they're really embracing it.
Yeah, and they're pouring money into AWS, their cloud computing platform, to build up the infrastructure needed to support all this AI.
Makes sense. They need the computing power.
Definitely. And they're taking a multi-pronged approach to AI models. They have their own models, like Amazon Nova, which is designed to be cheaper and faster.
Okay.
But they're also partnering with other companies, like Anthropic and Meta, so they can offer their customers a wider choice.
So they're covering all their bases.
Yep. And Jassy is really focused on building long-term relationships with customers and making sure AI actually helps them succeed.
So it's a very customer-centric approach.
Definitely. And it seems to be paying off. Jassy has said that they're already seeing big improvements in productivity and cost savings within Amazon's own retail operations, thanks to AI.
So they're using it themselves, too.
Oh, yeah. And he's also said that the capacity issues they've been having with AWS, because so many people want to use their AI services, well, he expects those issues to ease up in the second half of 2025.
So they're scaling up to meet the demand.
Exactly. They're putting a lot of resources into it.
Okay, so to sum up, Amazon wants to be the go-to source for all things AI. What are the key takeaways from their approach?
Well, they're really good at leveraging the scale and reach of AWS to make AI accessible to a lot of businesses.
Yeah, AWS is huge.
Right. And this whole supermarket idea gives customers a lot of choice and flexibility.
Right, you can pick and choose what you need.
Exactly. And their willingness to partner with other companies shows that they're not just trying to control everything. They want to foster AI adoption in general.
That's a good point.
And the amount of money they're investing in AWS shows just how serious they are about being a major player in AI.
Yeah, they're not messing around.
And the fact that they're using AI so much internally tells you that they really believe in its potential to transform their whole business.
Okay, so we've talked about all these different companies and their CEOs. It's amazing to see how they're all approaching AI in such different ways. But when you step back and look at the big picture, are there any like fundamental similarities in their thinking?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Despite all their differences, there are some key things they all seem to agree on.
Okay, like what?
Well, first of all, they all believe that AI is going to be incredibly transformative. Like it's going to change everything about how we live and work.
Right, we've heard that from pretty much everyone.
Yeah. And they all have a long-term vision for AI, even if the specifics of those visions are different.
Right. Some are focused on AGI, others are more focused on practical applications, but they're all thinking about the future.
Exactly. And they all understand the importance of infrastructure. You need massive computing power and data to build and run these AI systems.
That's a good point. It's not just about the algorithms, it's also about the hardware.
Right. And then, of course, they all need to attract and retain top talent. That's crucial for any AI company.
Yeah, the people building these systems are just as important as the systems themselves.
Absolutely. And they're all aware, to some extent, of the ethical implications of AI and the impact it could have on society.
Yeah, we've touched on that a bit throughout our conversation. So those are the similarities. What about the differences? Where do their views really diverge?
Well, the biggest difference is probably in their long-term goals. Some, like Altman and Musk, are really focused on achieving AGI and superintelligence. Others, like Amodei, Zuckerberg, Pichai, Nadella, and Jassy, are more focused on integrating AI into existing products and services and making it useful for businesses and individuals.
Right, so it's a difference in timelines. Some are thinking decades ahead, while others are more focused on the next few years.
Exactly. And there's also a difference in how much emphasis they put on safety. Anthropic is really all about responsible AI development, while others are maybe a bit less vocal about it, even if they're still taking precautions.
Okay, so that's an important distinction.
Yeah. And then there's the whole open source versus proprietary debate. Meta is really pushing for open source, while others are more protective of their models.
Right, it's a fundamental question about how AI should be developed and shared.
Exactly. And then their target markets are different too. Anthropic is really focused on businesses, while others are trying to reach a broader audience.
Okay, so different strategies for different goals.
Right. And finally, they have different ways of measuring success. Some are focused on achieving AGI, others are focused on economic impact, and Musk, well, he wants to understand the universe.
Yeah, that's a pretty unique goal. So we've talked about their visions and strategies, but what about what's actually working for them? What are some of their successes and challenges?
Well, for OpenAI, ChatGPT was a huge success. It really put them on the map and got everyone talking about AI.
Yeah, it was everywhere.
Right. But they've also faced some challenges with model quality and accusations of bias.
Right, those are some of the big debates around AI right now.
Yeah. And Anthropic has been doing well in the enterprise market, which shows that there's a real demand for AI solutions that are focused on safety.
Makes sense. Businesses don't want to take unnecessary risks.
Exactly. But they're also working on making their AI more robust against attacks and unintended consequences.
Right, because any system can be exploited.
Yeah, and XAI has gotten a lot of funding and buzz thanks to Musk, and Grok seems promising.
But it's still early days for them.
Yeah, we'll have to see what they do next. Meta has seen a lot of people using Llama, especially researchers and developers.
So their open source approach seems to be working there.
Yeah, but they've also been criticized for their data privacy practices.
Right, that's a big issue these days.
It is. And Google has been successful at integrating AI into their products, but they're facing tough competition in the generative AI space.
Yeah, it's a crowded market.
It is. And Microsoft has been making a lot of money from their AI services, especially Microsoft 365 Copilot.
So their focus on enterprise is paying off.
Yeah, but they're also working on scaling up their infrastructure to handle the growing demand.
And what about Amazon?
Amazon has been rolling out AI applications all over their company, and AWS is becoming a major AI platform.
So their supermarket approach seems to be working.
Yeah, but they've also had some capacity issues because demand is so high.
Right, it's a good problem to have, but still a problem. So even these big companies with tons of resources, they're all facing challenges.
Exactly. It's not easy being an AI pioneer.
So for someone who's thinking about starting their own AI company, what are some of the key lessons they can learn from all this?
Well, I think the most important thing is to have a clear long-term vision. You need to know what you're trying to achieve, even if it's something really ambitious.
Like understand the universe, ambition.
Yeah, even that. But you also need to focus on a specific problem that you can solve with AI. Like, what niche are you going to fill? What value are you going to provide?
Right, you can't just be everything to everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you need to think about safety and ethics from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's crucial.
Don't wait until later to try to bolt it on. And consider going open source. It can help you reach a wider audience and get feedback faster.
Right, that's what Meta's doing with Llama.
Exactly. And think carefully about your infrastructure. Do you have the computing power and data you need?
That's a big investment.
It is. And remember, AI is evolving incredibly fast. Don't build something that's just going to be obsolete in a year.
Right, you need to be ahead of the curve.
Exactly. Focus on solving real customer problems like Jassie's doing at Amazon.
So practicality over pure research.
Well, it's not that simple. You need both. But always keep the customer in mind. And don't underestimate the importance of building a great team. You need people who are passionate about AI and who share your vision.
That's a good point. It's all about the people.
Yeah, and don't forget about the last mile. Make sure your AI solutions are easy to use and integrate into people's existing workflows.
Right, because if it's too complicated, no one's going to use it.
Exactly. And remember, as Altman said, AI models going to keep getting better. Don't try to compete on something that's just going to be absorbed into the base model soon.
So be innovative, but also be realistic about what you can achieve.
Right. And consider leveraging existing platforms like Musk's doing with X.
Yeah, that can give you a big advantage.
And finally, don't ignore the ethical and societal implications of what you're building.
That's something we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked a lot about business, but what about the bigger picture? What are these CEOs saying about the ethical side of AI and its potential impact on society?
Yeah, that's something I'm really interested in.
Well, they're all aware of the potential downsides of AI. Altman's worried about superintelligence becoming uncontrollable. Amadeus worried about job losses and misuse of AI.
Right, those are some big concerns.
Yeah. Musk has also talked about job displacement and suggested universal basic income as a possible solution.